Alexander, we're talking about higher density living and a podcast that we're making, and where are we at right now?
These are called toadstool hoodoos.
Oh, so it's like Mario Brothers?
Yeah, it's like Mario Brothers. It's a rock formation, right? And like things, we see them breaking down, but really it's akin to the evolution of the Earth's crust itself. Time and pressure are these catalysts that allow us to grow and change our form to something that's most efficient. And the way these have formed behind us is that they form themselves to what's most efficient to this environment and the wind. That's why they've lasted so long through these millions of years to come to the design that they are, perfected by nature itself.
So you're telling me it's like us as humans?
It is like us as human beings. Why do you think we find so much beauty in these things that are broken or formed and so abstract? Because every individual, every human being is completely unique in its journey. No two rocks out here are the same.
And, you know, with millions of years of evolution, looking at humans, especially here on this planet, looking at specifically how they evolve.
Right.
So when you look at, from a spiritual sense, when we look at evolution and we look at these each being unique, how does that work with a human?
Well, the uniqueness is the thing is each one of these rocks sits in its own position in this area, just like you as a human being sit in your own position somewhere on this earth. And so when you're on that earth and you receive certain catalysts depending on that geography or your upbringing, that's going to help define you on your course of evolution in this current lifetime of the many lifetimes you will spend going throughout this time, throughout creation, to define who you are, to what you evolved to be, to head back to that thing that actually gave you the life to exist, much like this rock that sits here in the matter of what it is.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot has to do with self-awareness too. When we take, you know, and I mean, I want you to speak to this, when we take this and we put it into our real lives.
Yeah.
In our daily lives, the things that we do, you know, that are consistent, or the things that we do or we don't do. How does creational laws, and we'll get into that here in a second because I want people to understand that, but how does creational laws, how does it play out in the things that you do, whether your work, you know, the way that you play, and just the way we interact as humans among each other?
So when we are looking at creational laws in our daily life, these are things that have been around since time immemorial. These rocks outdate us for a very long time. Space outdates us. Creation, matter outdates us. So when we look for wisdom and how we want to operate and evolve within our lives, we need to look to nature. We need to look to the thing that's been a clear, present, timeless example of how we should live and interact with one another. Because through its own evolution, its own purpose, its own longevity, there's genius. There's great wisdom and logic to it. And these creational laws are absolutely foundational to what creates nature and allows it to flourish, allows it to form, allows it to have that uniqueness, much like a human being. Nature is afforded the free will. It's afforded the choice through its own biology, chemistry, evolution, and physics that apply to it. The same rules that we are bound by are the same ones the plant is bound by, and everything else and all the bodies and all the stars that are out there that we can see. And it's not that just the perception of the material things in this world that define how we make those interactions, but it's also how we take those laws we see outside of us and apply them to our thoughts.
Well, I think it's, you know, I think you mentioned the word free will, and I think this is important for our listeners to understand this, is when you look at, and we talk about this a lot, when you look at religion, you look at beliefs, these man-made systems that's been put out there to control you and to take over your free will. Anytime you have a belief in something, there's like this false hope, and you don't know. But we can look at this, I can go over there, touch, feel it. All my senses can be a part of that, and I can look at something that's sure.
Yeah, Jason, this is an absolute fact for you.
Right.
But when you go to religions, when you go to gurus, they come to you and they tell you this is how the world works. This is how the universe works. This is how your God tells you you should act. And within that narrow frame of reference, you've limited your evolution and the catalyst you can receive among this planet, this closed system that allows you to evolve, that allows you to make it progressively to that next step so you can be that better person. And through the betterment of yourself, you can uplift others at the same time.
So what we're talking about, and I want people to understand this, is that when you go to nature and you look at nature and you look at this universe and the millions and millions, I mean, we can go back to infinity.
Right.
We have certain laws that are put into place, that the way that the universe operates, that we can look at and put into our daily lives to make sure that we're living in union with who we are. And it's not us giving up our free will.
No.
It's not us having to believe something or to try to always grasp but never get, the carrot with the mule,
Right.
That's put in front of us, whether it's consumerism, it doesn't have wokeism, whatever it may be, far right, far left, it doesn't matter.
Tell me how you really feel.
But I think people need to understand this and get these universal or creational laws that are put out there are for each of us to follow. And it's not anything that, like you said, a guru has to teach you, a pastor, a priest. None of those things matter, because in the end, we all are going to die.
That's exactly right. And these things passively sit here. They rest. They wait for you to wake up through your self-awareness and recognize the value. They're adapting. And they're showing you the solutions to your life, which is adaptation to environmental stressors, to changes in our sunlight, to changes in our solar system. And through these things, you need to realize that everything that is above you and around you is what you are made of. You are a culmination of this material. You are a culmination of thought. You are a catalyst of creation working upon itself, allowing you to act as your own independent entity, figuring out its life and its own evolutive path. It's your choice. It respects your free will. And you, for a very long time, can choose to ignore it. It's always there for you, but that choice is yours. So until you step up to that self-responsibility to recognize all the nature and knowledge that sits around you within creation itself, and be objective about that approach, about what you can control within yourself and how you think, that's what will lead you on the straight, directed path to be something that is timeless, to turns into a natural creational piece of artwork and something that stands around in value, where other humans will look up to you and say, that is a model of what it means to be a human being.
I love that. And let's look at, I want to just pick a law real quick. And we talk about this one all the time, the law of cause and effect.
Right.
Because I think this is really important that people can understand this. And we have all the laws on our website.
Yep.
And people can go to higherdensityliving.com and look at those. But cause and effect. It's very kind of describe the law, and then I'll put it in kind of a way that people can understand it in their daily lives.
No problem. So cause and effect, in all of its simplicity, nothing can move without some sort of action ahead of time. You cannot think without some sort of precursor thought to drive you to will yourself to go take an action. The wind cannot move unless the atoms are heated up by the air or cooled down by the night sky. Okay? We cannot have shade unless the sun sets, right? The night cannot evolve. We cannot grow unless we have the causes of our more negative experiences of our life recognized before that point.
Yes.
We need these catalysts, these causes to create these great effects. And it's not something that we should look at where we can become indifferent to the world, but we should look at it with a positive, equal, and neutralized factor, so we can say, thank you for this learning catalyst. That's what cause and effect is. Evolution is a state of learning. So the greatest thing that leads us to our most evolutive path, that most straightforward directed path back to source, is looking at the cause and effect of our lives. Looking at what we do affecting the material, how we view our death, how we view our birth, and how we view our thoughts. And if we look at the cause and effect of all of those things, you'll realize that nothing is truly a surprise. Every choice you've ever made through this system has led to that point. And we drive those probabilities, we drive those catalysts to happen. And until we as a collective and as human beings become aware of that, we're always going to view the world as some sort of chaotic system that we never have any control over.
Yeah, and it's you mentioned the word learning. So with cause and effect. So whenever we have something that we perceive as being bad,
Yes.
or we perceive it as being suffering,
Right.
and those are words that we're looking at because we're looking at them from a lens of self,
Yes.
and not understanding that it's nothing against us.
No.
It's just an opportunity to learn.
Does nature have anything against you? It doesn't. We have this brush here behind
Right.
us. Is the brush completely differential to who it decides to give shade to?
No.
Whether it be the ant or a criminal or Mother Teresa. It's going to afford that shade because nature doesn't look to say that something is bad or good. It affords catalysts for learning. So if we can take on the positive, neutral, and equalized view of what education means for the self, to take this world, this life that we're in, this current meat suit, like you like to call it, and look at it as a catalyst, a school of learning for us, our thoughts and our spirit, this changes your perspective. You no longer become the victim to life. You become in control of your own life. And through that control, you're able to make choices that affords you greater opportunity, greater gains, greater learning, even if those catalysts are negative. And you can share in those stories and experience with others, because when you have knowledge and you have experience, you become wise.
And we look at technology and what's happening in the world today, and we know technology has done this huge boom, but yet we see just here recently, we've got reports globally that there's more depression, there's more mental health issues.
Yes.
And really when we look at the mind and the person, and we see we have the latest and the greatest of everything. We have so much comfort.
Yeah.
But there's no, like you talked about earlier, there's no stressors
No.
put into our life. And when we go to just seek comfort all the time, and we're not willing, because you don't learn, we don't learn in comfort.
No.
You know, the coyote that may be right over across the corner over there from us, they're always struggling to survive.
And that's where the learning happens.
Yes.
They know that the most efficient path is for this one to take, because that talks about their longevity. So if you consider yourself and us as a species, if we want to prolong the catalyst of our learning, the joy of this world, this school that we sit in, this globe, floating through space, we need to take these stressors and understand that they're not here to harm us. They're here to teach us. And as long as we wake up and use those for our benefit, we integrate with that learning, that catalyst becomes something positive and evolutive to us as a species and individuals.
Well, it's like, why do we feel so good after we get done with the gym? We stressed our bodies out.
We stressed our
physically.
bodies, and your mind is knowing, I need to focus on the stress.
Right.
The stress, if it affords me this material growth and strength.
And then why do we feel so shitty after we eat a huge box of Cheetos, flaming Cheetos, and we've watched 8 hours of Netflix?
That's because we've taken an 8 hours of Netflix plus the processed foods. You've gone away from nature.
Right.
You haven't had the dialogue with yourself. You've synthetically absorbed all of these negative catalysts.
Right.
These things that aren't truly beneficial for your equilibrium. You've attached yourself to the material world without a balance of understanding who you truly are. And because if you did know who you were, you wouldn't have the Cheetos. You wouldn't focus so much on television.
Right.
You'd have more conversations with yourself. You'd read the book about who you are as a human being, Jason. Not so much about the book of how other people tell you how to live.
Or a book of religion that is put out there.
That's exactly right. And tells you that you're naturally born out of error. You're born out of a sin.
So you always have this like guilt, fear, worry.
And that's what karma,
And that's what creates mental illness.
whether it's the Catholic Church, right, or Vedic religions that teach you about karma, or Buddhism that tells you to annihilate all emotion and feeling altogether. Those things do not drive the proper catalyst for what it means to be a human being. You have to think, you have to feel, you have to have emotions. The combinations of these things define our consciousness. They feed our spirits. They're the things that interlink us with one another and creation itself. And if we ignore those, we try to annihilate them or limit that perspective or catalyst of learning to say that all these things are negative and I can never be good. That will only reinforce subconscious
And I can
mindsets.
only be good if I accept this.
And that's not
or
what it
believe
is.
in this.
Because you have to know yourself, and through knowing yourself, you accept yourself. And when you accept yourself, you become the creator.
And in that creator, there's creativity.
That's precisely correct.
And so art, film, all these things that we view as being so creative.
Yeah.
When we look at these beautiful paintings, or we can go to these different chapels and we can look on the ceilings.
Yeah.
Everything that man has created that has been so creative, or out of the box, an iPhone that, you know, Steve Jobs helped do, whatever it may be.
Yes.
We look at these things that are creative and we admire them.
It's creation speaking to us in the material. When we look to nature and see its beauty, it's creation speaking to us through nature. And it's not to say that religions are bad. It's that there's learning that has to happen. Religion is a stepping stone for humanity to get us to where we truly belong. And where we belong is aligning one with creational laws themselves. The thing that affords religion to actually exist.
Because when we look at belief systems, they create division.
They create division. But that division, although it is negatively perceived,
Right.
it's a catalyst to say, that's not how we should be living.
No.
That creates difference. It does not create acceptance. It does not help us understand one another. But creation affords us the opportunity to act like that in our free will. It is patient with the learning process.
But if we create division in these beliefs with others, we're creating division amongst ourselves too.
That's
and inside
precisely
of ourselves. So in turn, what's happening is you've kind of created this dyslexia craziness that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So you're arguing between being a Christian compared to being a person, a human.
Yeah.
And you're like, I've got all these false sense of these beliefs that I have to follow. But when you look at it, I got a fly rolling around.
That's great.
I love it. But every time the fly doesn't care.
No, the fly doesn't care. It's just like, again, but that's the thing, right? If religion's flying around you,
Right.
are you going to be annoyed with it? Or are you going to be like, thank you for teaching me all these
Yes.
things. Thank you for coming in when I wasn't expecting it. Thank it for that catalyst. Understand that this religion is only driving you where you need to go, but be aware of the power that you have as an individual. Creation affords you the choice of free will, and when something goes against your free will, understand that it goes against creation.
So you have the power to take your own life, and you can get yourself to that point.
Correct. Just as much as you can
why
take
can't you take that same power
and move it to a different direction.
and people don't understand this, and we talk about this all the time, yin and yang, whatever.
Correct.
The black and the white, what we perceive to be sin,
Yeah.
whatever it is. It's not And I want people to understand this. It's not negative.
No, it's in times of the most hardship is when we are most honest with ourselves. And I don't ask people to quit this existence. I'm not saying that it's okay to pursue those thoughts. Those thoughts aren't healthy. But if you can look at that and find the smallest change of self-awareness, the smallest degree, and use that towards a positive catalyst for learning, to thank yourself for having these thoughts. Thank you for teaching me about myself at a very deep level, and channel that towards something positive for yourself, where you feel the warmth of that sun on your back, where you feel the joy of interacting with other human beings. That's what brings you forward in life. Understanding that unity of your thoughts, that unity of purpose, that collaboration of life and interacting with nature and other people is speaking to creation. You speak to yourself, you respect yourself at that point. If someone is holding you back from doing the most human things in the world, let that be the recognition for you. If you are holding yourself back from doing those things that you know will bring you joy, pay attention to it. And then go take that step outdoors. Feel that grounding. Go back to the thing that gives you life. And understand that the same air I breathe is the same one that every other person, every other type of color and religion breathes also. And every error that they may create through that learning process, if they don't learn it, what they committed also affords me the opportunity to learn, to teach my children and my children's children about what the value and purpose in alignment with creational laws and nature truly means.
Because we, instead of relying on creation, relying on the power that's within us, we start relying on political systems. We've talked about religion already. But when we look at everything that's going on, especially, after COVID and everything that's happened, we want to put our faith in a politician. We want to put our faith in a nation. We want to put our faith in this symbol or flag or whatever it may be, when actually that power collectively is in each and every one of us.
And it's not to say that we as a collective, when we come together, we have to lose our identity. There can be unity, great unity, in coming together as a completely specific individual, characteristically perfect to yourself and no one else. And that you can come together as a group and understand that you come together as human beings. You come together as a function of creation. If I have a pile of rocks behind me, they are rocks as a group, as a collective, but each one is so uniquely different from the next. But it doesn't take away from the collective value of their beauty when they come together. So we need to carry those metaphors and understand that these politicians, these government, these other figures in our life, the people that perceive themselves in a hierarchy as above us, they're not the ones there to control us. We're the ones that need to make the choice for ourselves. We need to find that responsibility and control and free will and recognize that power. So when we take those steps as ourselves and then share that power in taking those steps with others, and we do it as a collective, we are the ones that move mountains, not those individual politicians or nations or symbols that move it for us.
I would say even more than that, and I know we don't want to recognize this, and that is social media.
Right.
I mean, that technology has they call them influencers for a reason.
Yeah.
So we're allowing something to influence our free will.
Right.
We're saying I'm creative and I'm my own unique person. And shout out to those that are being extreme, or whatever you want to call it, extremely creative and putting them out. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
But when we look to Instagram and we're sitting there constantly, hour after hour, looking story after story, and we're saying, I want to be like this, or this is who I want to be. Why am I this person?
You are not that person because you were never meant to be them. You do not go to the gym to become Arnold Schwarzenegger. He is who he was. These people are influential in the fact that they are trying to be themselves in their own creativity. You're attaching yourselves to their identity. You can identify...
But I want to belong.
You can belong to the group, but do not attach the self and how you define who you are to that group.
I am this.
Yeah.
So when you say I am ...
No, you are yourself, and you always will be yourself.
Right.
And you can say that I want to embody some of those traits, but understand how those traits are embodied will always be uniquely characteristic to who you are and no one else. So do not attach your identity ever to anything on the outside, and realize your identity comes from the inside. Jason, you know that the way I talk can seem a little nebulous, maybe sounds a little impractical sometimes. Yeah.
Is there such a word?
I have no idea. But with that, you do a very good job, and I commend you for this all the time, of translating my thoughts.
Right.
How is it that you would tell someone, after interacting with me, having our conversations for years, knowing each other, studying this material and sharing it, what is the most normal or what's the easiest way someone can begin to change within themselves?
I think, and I'm going to speak to myself because I don't want to give like rules or anything out.
Yeah, use yourself as an
someone.
example.
For me, I think number one was understanding free will. And then understanding it, not in some big theological debate, but understanding it practically. Like if somebody's imposing on my free will, then I know that I need to understand what's happening in that moment and not allow that. I have that choice. It's 100% my responsibility to whatever, if it's a system, if it's a religion, if it's a person, if it's a relative.
Yeah.
And they're trying to impose on my free will, that becomes freeing in and of itself.
Right.
Because now I'm able to make decisions super clear. And then I think number two is studying the laws. Like when you look at each of the creational laws and you begin to study them and then to apply them, and then you walk out your front door and you look at that tree that's in front of you and you're like, okay, there's trees here, there's a tree right there, there's a tree right there. I can go study that tree, understand the systems of why it's thriving, how it's survived, and how trees in general have survived for millions of years. And I can look at that and say, how can I align with that system? And I can go hike and I can get out into nature like this, and I can get that refreshing, great feeling of being alive. We're not on the savannas anymore being chased by cheetahs. So.
No, we're not. And so then let me ask you then, was this a process that has happened overnight for you?
Oh no, this takes years. And but it's evolution.
And is the process done?
No, it's going to take lifetimes.
So then if you were to share someone the amount of perseverance required in this, tell me about that.
I think it's not as hard as people think. I want people to understand when you begin to look within inside yourself and begin to understand who you truly are, it actually makes life easier. Because you're not a victim to your emotions.
Love that. Yeah.
You're not a victim to that belief system or that government. You are your own being. And there's power in that. And then you begin to thrive in the world that you create. It's almost like a game, you create that world. It's Fortnite, and you can just create your characters and do whatever you want to do. It's SimCity for you. Yeah. And so now you're just creating, and then it comes to the point, and Ra talks about this, and we talk about this in the Law of One teaching. We'll get into this here in a second. That you have light and love and light. Yeah. And then in that process, you get to serve others, and serving others is that ultimate form. And so when you take the time to not just understand yourself and then say, how can I not impose on somebody's free will, but how can I help them?
How can I understand them?
Yes.
You come to them in love.
It's like now, the situations that were happening, there's so much division why can't people get together and say, how can I understand you? Yeah. How can I serve you?
Well, then what does that carry on to now? When we see UFOs that fly around in the sky, right. When a government tells us it's a possible enemy, every foreign thing that we come to face with is always our enemy. Right. It doesn't have to be like that. You need to come with them for love. You need to learn to understand why someone may be here.
And I want to put this to rest right now, logically.
Yeah.
This is so simple.
Thank you.
Extraterrestrials.
Yes.
Logically, they have to exist. If there is, scientifically, it's been proven in our known galaxy, and there's galaxies and galaxies and galaxies and galaxies, that there's tens of thousands of planets that are just like Earth.
Yes.
That's been proven.
The probability then says someone is an extraterrestrial civilization.
If you do the math, if you do the science, there has to be other life forms.
And they all didn't develop at the same time.
To think that we're the only one, in how vast is this universe?
It's naive. And through that naivety, we treat it as an enemy.
We treat
it as the other. Yes. And one day we will realize, when we come to face with these other people that do look just like us, right, and realize that we are not the top of the food chain.
No.
Creation did not set us above them, and they are not above us. We come to them as other beings of creation. That is the fundamental difference of how we should begin to view extraterrestrials and the visitors that come to join us when we are here on this planet.
So, why haven't they come on the White House lawn and showed themselves?
We've talked about free will. We understand the great respect of what it means to be a human being or a creational entity. You need to respect the free will. They would never overstep those laws. It is illogical to do so. It would create more harm for them to land on the lawn of the White House and dictate how we should live our lives or how our government should run.
Because if they're evolved, obviously if they got here, they have better technology than we do.
Right out of the gate.
If they're evolved, far superior than they are, then they know that they would, if they interfered with what's going on. So why are these, Navy commanders and these influential people that we see now coming out, Obama and, the Russian prime minister, why are they coming out admitting now that there's extraterrestrials?
Because there's so much of a want, there's so much of a calling. Now they have to design a narrative because they are losing control. Religion is losing control. Governments are losing control. And now if they can focus on a unified enemy for everyone across the globe to point at and say, they're the other, that's their winning play. But if we can come to those other human beings, those other extraterrestrials with love, kindness, unity, understanding, and respect them in the creational laws, that's going to be the fundamental difference that allows us to partner with them, understand their culture, and we can all move forward. Earth is in a time of great change and catalyst. Many people are pinned against one another, religions, cultures, nations. They're watching, they're observing, and as they are seen in our skies or around, it is a way for us to identify and remember the real truth so that we can reflect on our own actions and understand that what is going on here isn't the real truth. The truth sits in front of us, and we need to respect it and come together and not treat them as the enemy, not treat them as the God or the deity, or treat them as the other. They are here to remind us, but not to do it in any forceful manner because they respect our free will and they respect our evolution.
So you said remind us. Remind us of what?
Remind us of our humanity. Remind us of how we align with creation, because they align with it every day. They align with it in their technology, in the material sense. They align with it in the social sense, and they align with it in the spiritual sense. And until we as a collective come together and bring all of those three in equal tandem and weight, that's the thing that will act as the catalyst for humanity.
Yeah, and I want people to understand on Higher Density Living, our podcast, we're not trying to put rules out there. We're not trying to put any regulations or create a new age religious system or be a guru or any of that.
What are we trying to do?
We're trying to assist and serve humanity.
Right. And we don't ask anyone to pay for these things.
No.
We're not evangelical.
We're not for profit.
We're not for profit. We are here, and when you want to find us through your searching, and when you want to listen, and when you want to share, that's up to you under your own free will and accord, and we will never press you to do so. It is your turn to learn on your time, and we are here to respect that, and we're here to deliver material that is for your own knowing.